Good evening, monkey. It's time for your bedtime story now. I said I'd give you a different story because I know that you're not really one for Julia Donaldson, are you? So look, we're going to start today. We're going to start the story of Kevin the Very Old Rabbit. And we'll see, because it's a really long story, so we'll see after about 7 minutes if it's a case that we still have to go. We'll finish it tomorrow, because I can't upload more than 7 or 8 minutes of video at night, or we'll do it in 2 parts. Okay? Anyway, love you, baby, and I can't wait to see you in 2 weeks. Anyway, Kevin was a very old rabbit. Believe it or not, he was 146 years old. He had always been old. In fact, when he was born, he had glasses and a long white beard, which greatly surprised his mother, because she had perfect eyesight and she had no hair. His dad was called Kevin the Extremely Old Rabbit, but he's not in this story. Now, every Tuesday morning, Kevin would drive past the post office in Wexford to collect his pension. But today was no ordinary Tuesday, for 2 reasons. Firstly, it was his birthday, and secondly, it's because it wasn't Tuesday, it was Wednesday. This meant that he was actually 147 years old today. The only problem was he didn't know it. You see, because he thought it was Tuesday, he thought his birthday was the next day. Anyway, he parked his car in the usual place on double yellow lines opposite the police station. He turned off the radio and got out of the car. He never heard the radio on when he was driving because he hated pop music. Suddenly, a very watery thing happened. It started to rain. Not just a few drops, but bucketfuls. He ran to the bus shelter, but the bus shelter didn't have a roof, so that didn't help. He'd forgotten to bring his umbrella, and his fur was getting soaked. So he looked around and saw a big shop called Umbrella World, just next door to Woolworth. When he ran into the shop, he couldn't believe how many umbrellas were there. There were millions of them, even billions, all neatly lined up on the shelves. The first one he looked at was made of silk and had a gold handle, but it was too expensive. The next one was full of holes which let the rain in, but Kevin thought that was a silly idea, which it is. Then he saw a lovely umbrella which was yellow, covered with pictures of monkeys and tennis rackets. It was only £4.99, so he took out his purse and he bought it. When he went outside, he found that it had stopped raining, which was a good thing, but it was a bad thing. After looking at his watch, he decided he was probably hungry, so he crossed over the road to McDonald's. He bought a Big Mac, threw the burger and the bread into the bin, because he was a rabbit, and rabbits only like lettuce. 3.5 years later, or weeks later, he got a letter from the manager at McDonald's, and it said, "Dear Mr. Very Old Rabbit, congratulations! You have won a trip around the world on Concorde in our Ronald McDonald Spot the Difference. The plane leaves London tomorrow at 8 o'clock. Have a great time. Love, Sir Malcolm Morris MacDonald." Unfortunately, Kevin couldn't read, so he screwed the letter up and threw it in a bin. He thought it was just a soppy love letter from Mildred Parker, who used to fancy him in school. A bit later that day, Kevin got a phone call from Sir Malcolm Morris MacDonald's secretary. She wanted to know if he was packed and if he was ready to go on the plane. At first, Kevin thought it was Mildred Parker asking him if they're ready for their honeymoon. But after a while, the secretary, whose name was Gladys, explained it was a competition and that he would be travelling around the world on Concorde. We were on Concorde in Barbados, weren't we? Kevin was really excited. He packed his suitcase with 2 jumpers, a pair of trousers, and a clean pair of socks. 9 pair of pajamas, a book, another book, sunglasses, one more book, and a cuddly toy. Next day he got up bright and early. He drove down the motorway to the airport and got on board the plane. A nice lady called air stewardess gave him a cup of coffee and a chocolate biscuit. He didn't really like coffee, but he drank it because he didn't want to upset her. At 8 o'clock, with a whoosh, the plane took off into the sky. And Concorde travels faster than the speed of sound. So it took 3 hours to get to Washington. When they got there, the first person that Kevin met was a man called Barack Obama. He used to be the president of the United States, but not anymore. He took Kevin to lunch at the White House. They had fried lettuce with jam and chatted about their favourite cartoon. Kevin's was Bug Bunny, but Barack, his favourite, was Scooby-Doo. At 7:30, Kevin was back on the Concorde flying to Hollywood, which is where all the actors and actresses make their films. He was introduced to a man called Steven Spielberg. Steven Spielberg is very, very famous because he made the movies E.T. and Jurassic Park. Mr. Spielberg was amazed to meet an American rabbit that could talk. He had been looking for a talking rabbit for his next movie, which was called Attack of the Bunnies. But Kevin didn't want to be an actor. He was a plumber and preferred tinkering around with taps and water pipes. Kevin spent the night in a very expensive 5-star hotel. He had a TV in his room that had 49 channels, so he stayed awake all night watching TV. When morning came, he was so tired that he fell asleep. He missed breakfast and he missed lunch and he missed tea. Worst of all, he missed his flight on Concorde. When he woke up, he caught a bus to the airport, but he was very disappointed when they told him the plane had already left. So he caught a bus to the harbour and got on board a big passenger ship that was going to Japan. He was excited to find out that he had his own cabin and a bed, and in his room there was a portal. There was a restaurant on the ship, but there was a problem with the food. The ship's crew had forgotten to load any food supplies onto the ship, except for 600 sacks of broccoli. Now, normal people don't like broccoli, but if you're a rabbit, you'll find that broccoli is really nice. So this was great for Kevin. 600 sacks of broccoli, and he was the only one on the ship who liked it. He ate 4 sacks straight away, and then decided to keep the other 596 for later. At 9:10, a big storm blew up, and the ship sank. Luckily, Kevin had been sitting in one of the life rafts at the time, so he was safe. He steered the raft to the nearest desert island, which was small in size and round in shape, and had a palm tree sticking up in the middle. It also had one other thing, a lady that looked a little bit like Mildred Parker, his girlfriend. In fact, she looked so much like her that it was her. This was a very depressing development for Kevin, stuck on a desert island with Mildred Parker. Of course, Mildred was delighted to see Kevin and immediately wanted to kiss him. He quickly climbed up the palm tree to escape her, but he didn't know that Mildred had once won an Olympic gold in gymnastics in the Olympics. Basically, that meant she was very good at climbing trees. So she was very able to follow him. Unfortunately, the palm tree was one of the weakest, and it couldn't support them. So there was a crack, and the tree toppled over, and both Kevin and Mildred landed in their sand with their heads sticking into the sand and their legs wiggling in the air. They were stuck there for many years. Kevin spent his time playing a Monopoly set he had kept in his waistcoat pocket. He didn't know any of the rules, but he enjoyed passing go and collecting £200 every time. Mildred spent her time trying to count the grains of sand on the beach. She got up to 4,942,006,423 when Kevin threw a couple of grains into the sea and she had to start again. The day after Kevin's 200th birthday, a ship came and rescued them both and brought them back to London. They had been stranded on the desert island for more than 50 years. And you know, something really nice happened during that time that I didn't tell you about. The two of them fell in love. Soon after they arrived back to England, they got married, and they had 2 children and told them all about their adventure. A bit later, they decided to live happily ever after. The end. And get some sleep, honey. Love you.